Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on AI music generation. We're going to cut through all the hype and build a really clear technical and, legally grounded understanding of how this technology actually works right from the ground up. And look, we have to start by acknowledging something super important. The whole conversation around AI and art, it's filled with some very real concern, especially from creators. And you know what? Those feelings are completely valid. This technology touches on identity, on livelihood, and really the very nature of what art is. So our goal today isn't to just dismiss those fears, but to replace them with a clear-eyed understanding of the mechanics behind it. And we're going to do that by breaking it all down into 4 key parts. First, we'll look at how an AI creates anything at all, starting from, just pure randomness. Second, we are going to tackle the critical, and I mean critical, difference between learning and copying. Third, we'll see how your prompt actually shapes the sound. And finally, we'll connect all this tech back to the real-world legal questions about copyright. So let's start with the most fundamental concept, right? AI music doesn't begin with a library of songs that it's trying to piece together. Nope. It starts with something way more basic, pure random noise. Kind of like the static you'd see on an old TV. Honestly, the best analogy for this entire process is a sculptor. The AI starts with this formless block of marble, which in our case is that random noise, and its entire job is to chip away everything that isn't music until something intentional and structured finally emerges. It's a process of removal, not of assembly. So this whole sculpting process has a name. It's called diffusion. And here's how it works in basically 4 steps. First, you start with that block of pure random noise. Step 2, you give it a prompt, let's say a soulful ballad. That prompt acts as a bias, or you could say the sculptor's vision. Then, in a whole bunch of small, gradual steps, the AI starts removing any noise that doesn't fit the statistical patterns of what a soulful ballad should sound like. And finally, after hundreds of these tiny little steps, an intentional sound emerges out of all that randomness. Okay, so that's the how, but it kind of leads to the big question, right? What did the AI learn in the first place to even know what a soulful ballad is supposed to sound like? And this brings us to what is easily the most misunderstood part of this whole debate, the difference between learning patterns and just copying stuff. And this is where a crucial legal distinction comes into play. An AI model learns style, which isn't copyrightable. It learns things like the average tempo of a genre or the tendency for vocals to be kind of breathy or more aggressive, the overall brightness of a mix. What it does not learn or store are specific copyrightable expressions, things like melodies, lyrics, or a specific vocal take from one recording. It's like it's learning the recipe, not memorizing the finished. But this is the question that trips everyone up. If it's not copying, then why does a prompt for a certain artist's style create something that feels so similar? Well, the answer has a lot more to do with statistics than it does with theft. See, artists don't just exist in a vacuum. They tend to cluster together in what you could call musical neighborhoods. They share similar BPMs, similar production aesthetics, similar vocal habits. The AI learns the shared traits of that entire neighborhood, not the specific address of one single artist. So when you hear a similarity, you're actually hearing the patterns of a whole genre or a scene, not a copy of one individual. And this right here perfectly illustrates the core legal difference. Sampling takes a piece of actual copyrighted audio and reuses it. It's deterministic, it's traceable. Diffusion, on the other hand, is synthesis. It generates brand new audio from noise based on learned tendencies. It's stochastic, which just means it's random every single time. And in copyright law, that distinction between reuse and synthesis, it's everything. Okay, so the AI starts with noise. It learns statistical patterns. But how do we, the user, actually control the outcome? Well, this is where prompts for style, emotion, and delivery become our sculptor's tools, guiding exactly how that block of marble gets shaped. The model actually understands different types of vocals as different kinds of math problems. For example, rap is mostly a timing problem. It's all about rhythmic precision, the sharpness of consonants. Singing, though, is mostly a pitch problem. It's focused on creating smooth, continuous, melodic lines. So the model just prioritizes one of those constraints over the other based on what you ask for in the prompt. So what about something abstract, like emotion? To an AI, sad isn't a feeling. It's a mathematical bias. It's a set of instructions that just nudges the output toward acoustic patterns that tend to show up with the label sad in the training data. Things like lower pitch variance, softer dynamics, a darker tone. It's way less about feeling and much more about just shifting the statistical probabilities. And what about when things go wrong? Like when the vocals get all slurry and indistinct? That's not a creative choice. It's just a technical limitation. It happens when the model is uncertain about the precise timing of certain sounds or phonemes. So to solve its math problem, it just kind of smooths over that uncertainty, which is what we hear as a slur. It's basically the sculptor sanding away too much detail because the instructions weren't quite precise enough. Which, of course, brings us to the ultimate question that every creator, every lawyer, and every listener is asking. Given how this tech works, where are the actual legal lines being drawn? All right, now we can take our technical understanding and connect it directly to the legal landscape. Because look, the law wasn't built for diffusion models, but its core principles still totally apply. So this is crucial. Copyright law has always made a distinction between protected expression and unprotected ideas or styles. Your specific melody in your lyrics, yep, protected. But the general vibe of your music, the tempo you use, or your vocal attitude, that has never been copyrightable. I mean, it's pretty much how genres are even allowed to exist. And courts are really struggling with this, because copyright law is built for a world of direct copying, a clear causal chain from one work to another. AI diffusion doesn't have that. It's based on what's called distributional learning. It absorbs statistical patterns from countless sources. There's no direct path from a single song and its training data to the final output. And all this is leading to an emerging consensus. Using AI for style inspiration, for genre emulation, or creating a similar emotional delivery, that's likely legal because it falls under that uncopyrightable style category. But crossing the line into explicitly cloning a specific person's voice without their permission, or reproducing protected lyrics or melodies, those actions are definitely risky, if not outright illegal. So you might be wondering, well, if style prompting is legal, why do AI companies block artists' names in their prompts? Good question. This is a business policy, not a legal admission that they're infringing on copyright. They do it to avoid lawsuits over things like trademark confusion and an artist's right of publicity, which is the right to control how their name and likeness are used for commercial purposes. It's about branding law, not copyright law. So if there's one single, most important takeaway from this entire explainer, it's this. AI music models don't imitate artists. They imitate the statistical patterns that many artists share. This is the core thesis. The whole process is about learning the shared, uncopyrightable patterns that define a genre or a style, not about copying or imitating the protected work of one specific person. And what does this all mean for creators? Well, probably the most constructive way to look at this technology is not as a replacement for artists, but as a replacement for the blank page. Yeah, it can generate sound, but the human artist is still the one who provides the taste, the intention, the curation. The artist decides what has meaning and what ultimately gets released out into the world. And ultimately, this just shifts the whole conversation away from fear and toward possibility. This technology is a tool. Its impact is going to be defined by the artists who use it. So the final question really isn't what the machine will do to us, but what we will choose to create with it.